Namaste, Vanakkam, and welcome to Sampoorna Australia. On behalf of Sampoorna Australia, we want to express our heartful of thankfulness to each of the viewers who are watching our program on YouTube, as well as we want to welcome humbly all those who joined us on Zoom. Today, we are going to present a new program, a new topic. As just like last week, we started with fear, and today we're going to talk about how fear affects our life and our health physically and mentally and so on. So we have two presenters who are going to present the program today. We have Russell George, who presented last time on fear. We have Josephine Charles, who is going to present the topic today. Russell and Josephine, on behalf of Sampoorna Australia, I wanted to welcome you and I wish you all the best as you present the program today. And all the viewers who are watching across the world on YouTube, as well as those who joined on Zoom, I want to welcome and wish you all the best. I want you to join on same time, week after week, to receive very helpful, useful tips from the team Sampoorna so that you will be blessed by our program. I wanted to give the time to Russell George to present the program today. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for joining us, everyone there on YouTube, and for us here who can share and ask questions as well. It's good that we can be together and do that. Thank you for joining us again on YouTube. It's a pleasure to do that, and we would again invite you to share your comments, questions in the chat box down, and and interact with us. We'd like to know your questions, your thoughts, and if we can help in any way, we'd like to do that. So Josephine and I are going to share this presentation, not a presentation, just a conversation that we want to have about fear and how it affects us. Last time, as we started, we talked about, Sampoorna, we talked about ourselves, we talked about how we want a holistic health, a full health, a complete health, and Jivan Jyoti, meaning a life that is a light, it is shining, which is having light in ourselves and to be able to bring blessing to other people as well. And so as we started our presentations last week, we just talked about how fear affects us physically, affects us, our body, what happens to us, the autonomic nervous system. Automatically, when you're afraid, certain things happen to your body. You don't have to control or do anything, but it just happens just like that. We're talking about all those things. And if you were to see a snake, if you were to see a tiger on the road or somewhere, you would automatically, your eyes, your pupils would dilate, you start breathing deeply, you shallow breathing, and then your heart will start pumping. There are other things that are happening that you don't notice. And so all this because of adrenaline that's pumped in the body. And already physically, this is the physical reaction that happens last time. We talked about last time. So this time we want to talk about how fear affects us mentally and our mental cognition, how we function, what we do, how we reason, how we understand, how does fear affect us. And so I'd like to invite Josephine to share some of those things. So before we ask that question of how fear affects us in our mental health, maybe we can ask the question, and Josephine could maybe share a little bit more on this. What is mental health? What do you mean by mental health? When you talk to your patients, when you talk to people in the community, what do you mean by mental health, by cognition?
Thank you, Russell, for asking the question. According to what I know or what I have learned, I see mental health as the ability of a person to be able to reason out clearly, to have the right knowledge, and using that knowledge to make decisions and being able to reason out. So they can live a happy, fulfilling life. So, breaking it down again, so I would take knowledge, reasoning, judgment, and decision making comprises of mental health.
Thank you. Thank you. So knowledge. You talked about knowledge, and you told me an interesting thing before when we were just chatting. So would you like to share a little bit of more about each of these four areas that comprise mental health, and then break it down into how fear will affect us as well in these areas? So yeah, if you could start off with the knowledge part.
Yes, sure, Russell. Recently, I was watching a very interesting talk about knowledge and fear and imagination. So, this is what the speaker was referring to. He said, have you ever thought about a negative thought? We can take it in our context as fear. Have you ever experienced a fear and you don't know what is the source of the fear? And then he brought down to saying, we always wonder in life, why does we have just a sudden fear over a snake, or fear over something really bad happening to us? And he pointed to the very important element in human reasoning is imagine human thinking or human brain or mind is imagination. He brought the point saying when we watch something in the television, we can take for example our current situation with COVID. As we spend a lot of time on the negative side of COVID or any aspect of life, we are receiving in negative images, hearing negative things from the television. So it affects our mind and our imagination. So going back to knowledge, so if we put in our mind, into our brain, negative information, it can lead us to have negative consequence. In our instance, fear related to something. So in the last few weeks, we all have been looking into the story or into the incident that's happening in Afghanistan, and people's mind is filled with fear. So the knowledge that we gain, we need to be careful as to what knowledge or what information we put into our brains.
So what I'm hearing you say is that while we cannot always stop all the negative information that we get in our sphere of influence that we come across, but we need to be careful how much exposure we give ourselves to negative information. Is that something that is fair?
Yes, I think, yeah, exactly, Russell, because we need to be very careful about our mental health, especially in the current situation, because if we are we are enclosed in the fear of what is happening, we cannot progress in our lives. So it's very important what information we put into our lives.
Yeah, so yep, so critical because right now, like you said, with COVID, Afghanistan, there are many other things that if you look at the news, I just saw this morning that a mom and a child was mauled to death by their pet dog, and it's not something that you want to listen to and to keep your eyes always on really these tragic, really sad stories. And so it affects us, as you said, it affects us a lot. So it affects us as it comes into us. How else does it affect us? You said something about understanding as well. Was that right?
Yes, that's right. So going to another aspect of mental health is understanding. So understanding, there's many definitions or many explanation we can give on the word, on the term understanding. Understanding is to know what is right and what is wrong and how to process it for our good. I want to go back and refer to something that you referred last week. Fear is a good thing. Fear is something can keep us from making wrong steps. If we see a snake, yes,
Yes.
we have fear, we want to run away from that. But fear also can cripple us. So somebody who can get fearful and just stand there in front of a snake and get bitten. because fear has overwhelmed them, has overtaken them, and it stops us from doing something right. So, what, if I can say, understanding is knowing what is right for us and taking that information. So, keeping in mind, fear can cripple us. At the same time, fear can help us to move away from something which is bad for our lives.
So you mentioned earlier, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned something about some hijacking something.
That's right. Yeah.
I can I'll put an image up, and then you can
Yes,
share.
sure, definitely. Thanks, Russell.
Yeah, you go ahead, and then I'll share this on the screen.
A few years ago, we had a privilege of attending a seminar from which it made a big impact in my life about um, certain things that has happened in our lives in the past. Going back to the image that has been that's been broadcasted here, it's pointing to a point here called amygdala. That's a place in our brain that is just behind our eyes. I don't know how many of us are aware there is a saying or there's a proverb that says what we put into our mind will in the future make a lot of impact in our lives. So going back to amygdala is a part where we store all the information that we have gained, visual, auditory, and whatever we have gone through in life, it is a storehouse in our brain. So that is just right behind our eyes. So going back to amygdala hijack. We all know what is hijacking? Someone taking over something. So what happens in amygdala hijacking is when we are in fear, our body goes into this hijacking mode where it doesn't have a proper reasoning. We automatically respond in the same way we had responded probably 10 years ago. So those years of experience or our understanding and knowledge doesn't make any difference, and we are kept in a captive. We are kept captive by these fears. For example, when psychologists say the first fear that kids have when they are in their probably in their years when they are 2, 3, and 4 is fear of darkness. They overcome it. Probably they have a parent who are there and say, it's okay, it's fine, I'm there with you, you just have to call out and I'm there. They give the assurance and the child gets out of that fear. But sometimes you see still adults who are fearful of darkness. The reason is because they are hijacked by the amygdala, because their reasoning is not working. They're still in that hijacked stage when it comes to fear of darkness. So that's what I was referring to, amygdala hijacking.
So the design of the amygdala is to show us that there is danger there, there's something could happen, and so to keep us ready for to do something, either to, like you said earlier, fear is not a bad thing always, to either step away from it or fight that fear. And so, but once it gets hijacked, that's where we are in trouble now. And
yeah, that's right, exactly. Thanks. Yeah, yes, Rosal. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so thank you for bringing that out, and so important, and just to understand how we are made and how the design is and how it works and how it functions. So how this mind even works is such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you talked about knowledge, you talked about understanding, and how the understanding can be hijacked as well through the amygdala if it's not properly cared for. You mentioned something else about reasoning, I believe, and maybe judgment. So you go ahead and share what you would like to for us to know.
So for us human being to be sound mentally, we need to have good reasoning and judgment. So for us to have reasoning and judgment, if there is a fear factor, if fear overtakes us, for example, I want to achieve something in my life. For example, I want to learn how to drive a car. If there is some related fear, I'm not able to reason out, and my judgment is clouded, I'm not able to achieve the goal that I wanted. So fear can affect us mentally, that stops us from making progress in our lives in the direction we want to go. If we want to achieve something, we want to achieve something like learning to drive a car, with fear of, oh, I might be in an accident, or predicting a negative incident, or having being hijacked, as I mentioned before, being hijacked by the amygdala. You are caught up in the fear. Probably you saw somebody who was in an accident, or you heard somebody who was in an accident, or you have let this fear of unknown grasp you, and it clouds and it affects your judgment and reasoning, and it keeps you making decisions or improving your life, and to live that life to its fullest. It will cripple you. So I think, yeah. So fear is very is a very crippling thing in our lives, and it's very important for all of us to learn and to overcome the negative influence of fear. You have to note what I say is the negative influence of fear. Fear has got good, positive influence in our life, and most of the time it's a negative influence in our life that cripples us, and it doesn't let us live the life that we are being created by our designer.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, we were talking about last time as well, and a couple of things that we asked our viewers, and something that we are doing ourselves is a couple of things to help with fear. One was to tell someone, at least one person. You remember last week we were sharing, just tell at least one person some of your struggles, your fears, something that you're worried about, and someone you trust, a family member, a friend. That would be something that can help in this area of fear, of dealing with fear. And the other thing that we mentioned last time, and I would hope if you could mention in the chat, even the viewers here, if you've maybe done some deep breathing, breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. So I hope we could had a chance to do it. Did anyone of us here as well had a chance to do something? Yeah, that's good. And I think at least it's good that we are doing it, so we can set an example. So that's a good thing. But I have maybe a couple of thoughts, and maybe I don't know if you'd like to share as well, Josephine. I have one thought of another way of dealing with some of these fears that we have, and at least something to reduce the fear, to reduce the effect, the negative effect, like you mentioned, of fear. So one of the things that I was thinking of was maybe going for exercise, like 30 minutes every day, just making sure that we go out for a walk or a run or a bicycle ride or something, so that the stress hormones, when what is the hormone, the
Adrenaline.
when adrenaline is pumping in our blood, when you're fearful and the adrenaline is pumping, it's there and it's going to affect the body anyway. And one of the best ways to get rid of the adrenaline is to go actually and use that energy now in something useful, or maybe go for a walk, like we said, just do something that will use up the energy that is built in now. Otherwise, it'll just stay in the system and it will start hurting us. And we keep doing that. And so exercise is an excellent thing. I don't know, this is an interesting thing. And a friend of mine, an Australian friend, an older gentleman, he was mentioning before, it was quite interesting. And he said, before, they should not have so many couples used to not divorce a lot. And I was intrigued into saying, why wouldn't couples divorce? Or when they got angry and they had arguments and stuff, they didn't divorce a lot. It was because the men at that time had to go, when they were upset, they didn't say anything. They would go outside and chop wood. Not chopping wood with not with, with machinery, with the hands and an axe, and then go and chop wood. And so they would they would actually use it for something positive, and all the energy that is there, instead of taking it out on their wife, they would actually take it out on something useful and make something useful out of it. And I was like, I was really intrigued. That's a good thing. And maybe we don't have to chop wood now. We have to find something else to do. But it is a good way of dealing with our stress, dealing with something useful, something positive that we could do when the energy is there. Because when the adrenaline pumps, glucose is going into our blood, the muscles are ready to work. Let's use it for something. So that's one excellent thing I think we could do. All of us, when we are a bit stressed, when we are fearful, go for a walk, use that energy, because it's there and it's flowing through your body, and you might as well use it instead of letting it sit there and maybe make it harder for you, both physically and then even in our relationships. I think it would be such a blessing.
That's right. Sorry, Russell. I think I going back to ways to deal with fear. Last week we gave 2 tips how to manage or overcome or fear in our lives. One was a physical activity, who is trying to take a deep breath. Another was a social activities, talking to someone. So I thought probably, thank you for what you said. Another activity to add in our list is going for a walk or doing some meaningful physical activity, so that can bring our adrenaline down. Another thing that I have learned in the last few years is to identify what is your fear. Actually, what is the fear you have? Because at times we build, or fear gets built up in our lives without no roots. We don't have any roots to base our fears on. So knowing where is your fear coming from, it could be something actually deep down rooted, and you need to have some outside help from a counselor, a psychologist who can help you. So having someone help you through identifying actually what your fear is will help your mental health. Because in my life, there were times when I would feel this gush of adrenaline and I would be fearful, but I couldn't point to what was that fear, or I couldn't point to say, this is what I'm feeling. So I can actually learn to cope with it, or try to reason out, or speak to a friend and say, I've got this fear of driving, for example. If I know actually what is my fear, I can overcome it. I found many things useful for me to identify actually what the fear is. The first thing is I started writing. I started writing down actually what my fear is or what I feel. That helped me to overcome my mental barriers, or mental or what is that, mental block that fear has brought. So I think, adding to what Russell said, physically we can go out and probably chop some wood, or usefully try and do some gardening, or wash your car, do something physical. Adding to what we said last week is talking to a friend, probably talking to a friend and trying to identify actually what the fear is would help us.
Yeah, it's an excellent thought. A good exercise for us for this week, just to if for those of us who are struggling with fear, or maybe we know someone who is struggling with some stresses and some fears, maybe to help them or encourage them to find what to put the finger on the issue by writing it out. I think that's an excellent idea. I think our thoughts become a bit clearer when we write things down, and we may bring to us things that maybe are hiding from the surface, and then as we write it down, it comes a bit more clearer to us, and so it will help us. So for those of us who may be going through stuff right now, just writing a journal, some things that people do. I don't know if Josephine's done it as well, but that's something that can be really helpful. So go ahead, Josephine.
I think I haven't had a personal journal as such, but whenever I have felt a fear or anything that comes on, I just jot it down either on my phone or write it down and say, why did I have that fear? Or why? Because of that fear, it actually has stopped me making a lot of progress in my life. So I write it down and think over it and probably speak to someone on that. So I think if you are keeping a journal, or if you like to keep a journal about what fears that you have and what steps you can take, that is a fantastic step to take. But if you don't want to keep a journal, you just write it down and say, okay, you write it down and say, okay, this is the fear that I have, this is what the cause is. You, if you are someone who 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 believe in God and who believe in a designer, take some spiritual help
Mm.
and talk to someone, as people can help us, because people are there to help us, strengthen us, and help us in our fears and to grow. If you have someone who is very close to you or whom you believe or trust, share your fears, and that will help you to build a strong mental power within yourself to overcome what comes in our lives.
Thank you, Josephine. Thank you for those thoughts. So just wrapping up, I guess, what we've learned today. So fear affects us physically. We talked about it last time. This time we were talking about fear affecting us mentally, and in terms of the knowledge base that we have, the memories that we form, our understanding. You mentioned things about reasoning and judgment as well. And so we need to be really careful how that will affect us. And some of the ways we've talked about is writing your fears down, trying to pinpoint the fear, and as well as we shared last time, breathing exercises, talking to someone about it, as well as maybe even going for a walk, for a run, doing something physical with the hormones that are already building up. So those were some of that was just an overview of this afternoon's presentation, discussion. Thank you for sharing with us. Do you have any final thoughts to encourage our viewers in this area of mental health and fear before we close?
I want to close, or I want to wrap up this afternoon's talk by saying we are human beings, are not just physical, we are mental, emotional, and social. So fear can be a crippling thing in our lives that can affect every aspect of our lives. If you are someone who has or who is going through some kind of fears in your life, I really ask you to seek help and experience your life that your designer has created for you in its fullest.
Thank you. Great advice. Yeah, and look, like Josephine is a nurse, is a registered nurse, and she has those credentials behind her. As others of us don't have any medical background. We're just doing this because we like health. We want to help other people. We have experienced health in our own life, our own struggles and our own blessings as well. We just want to share that with other people. And so again, disclaimer, like as Josephine has just shared, go to see your doctor, go and find some help, especially if you're struggling. But this is just some other information that can help you at this time. I do just want to remind you once again before we leave that you can join us on the Sampoorna Australia channel. You can put your notes, you can put your comments there, any questions you can write there. We'll try to answer them if there's any way. I do also want to give you a number. I'd like to share it on the screen. I can't do it right now, but I'll just tell you the number. The number is 0478 791 119. That's 0478 791 119. So you can SMS us, you can give us a call. If we don't pick up, one of us will get back to you. Charles, either myself, we just get back to you. And if you can do anything, happy to help out, happy for you to call us and chat with us. We want you to interact with you. If there are any topics that you want us to deal with, to talk about, please feel free to write to us, to comment in the comment section below in our channel. And yeah, we'd love to do that. So same time next week at 3 o'clock, we will do an aspect that Charles will lead out actually. And so we'll leave that to him for next week. It's a little bit of a surprise. So we'll leave that there. So yes, last week we did physical. This week was mental. and we'll see the next aspect of fear in our health next week. So thank you for joining us again. We hope to see you next week at the same time. Blessings.